Hello everyone, this is Ravinder Dundra and welcome to my channel. In this lecture, we will discuss about class 9th CBSE Economics chapter number 1, that is the story of village Palampur. So, what is this story of village Palampur? What is this Palampur? Where it is located? And what we are going to learn from this chapter? So, actually, Palampur is a hypothetical village, or we can also call it as this an imaginary village. In reality, it does not exist. But what is the purpose? Why we are going to discuss about this village is that from this lesson, from this village as an example, we will learn some of the basic concepts related to this production. Why? Because through the story we can learn what is this production activities, why it is taken place, how it will be taking place. So all these things which are related to production we will discuss in this chapter. And in this Palampur village, one of the main activities is this farming. You all know what do you mean by this farming. And apart from farming, there are some other activities which are also performed in this village, which we may call them as this non-farming activities, such as small manufacturing or a dairy farming, or you can take other activities which are not coming under this farming activities. But in order to see all these activities, in order to get manufacturing or in order to run this dairy, what are the things required? We require some of the resources. That we require natural resources, human resources, money, etc, etc, etc. So all these things are required in order to do this non-farming activities as well as farming activities. So overall, what we are going to learn from this chapter is that we will learn how this production takes place, what are the factors that are responsible for this process of production. And some of the basic introduction about this village is that this village is Palampur, an imaginary village located near to a place or near to a very big village known as Raiganj. And this Raiganj is also very close to this town known as this Shahpur. And this Palampur, it is 3 kilometers away from this village known as this Raiganj. And when we look into the road connections with this village, you can see in Palampur there is a road which we can call it as this Pakka road or all-weather road, in which in all the seasons, no matter rainy, winter or summer season, the road is well connected to this other nearby villages. And you can see all the types of vehicles can be going on this road. For example, motorcycle, bullock cart, car, tractor, etc, etc. So different vehicles can be or can also be running on these roads. Then the other very important thing about this village is that the number of families in this village, you can find more than 450 families, of which most of them belonging to this upper caste people, or you can also say this higher caste people. And 80% of the families, they belong to this upper caste. And the other very important thing is that in this village, this 80% of the upper caste people, most of them, their houses are pakka houses, or well furnished, well constructed houses. And remaining other people are also there, such as Dalits, and these Dalits, or we can also call them as scheduled caste. And these people, they have no pakka houses, some of them have been destroyed, some of them were kacha houses. So like this, there is some kind of difference between this upper caste people as well as scheduled caste and their way of construction of these houses. And when it comes to the schools and healthcare centers, in this village Palampur, there are mainly 2 primary schools are there. Then at the same time, in this village you can also find healthcare center, which we can also call it as something known as this PHC, primary healthcare center. And there is also one private dispensary, that means run by an individual instead of government. So like this. And other very important thing is that this village is having very good connection with the electricity, at the same time tube wells, irrigation facilities. So all these activities, all these requirements, whatever is required for a village, so everything is there in this village. Then at the same time, you can also take this irrigation facilities. There is a high, or we can say well developed irrigation facilities are also there in this village for these farmers. Why? Because farming is the main activity in this village. So when we compare all these things, roads, schools, healthcare centers, electricity, or you can take irrigation facility, tube wells, etc, etc, by seeing all these things, we can say that Palampur is a well developed village. So from this well developed village and imaginary village, we will discuss some of the basic concepts of this production. What do you mean by this production? Production means, you can simply say, turning or changing the raw materials into a final finished goods. For example, you can take this sugar, we can make it into a sugar, suppose you take sugar cane, we can bring sugar from this sugar cane. So like this, whatever the things we are doing by changing this raw material into this final product or finished product, we can call it as something known as this production. So let us discuss some of the important things about this production. So first, let us discuss about this organization of this production. How production is organized, what are the factors that are required for every production in this village or in any place. So basically, for every production there are mainly 4 factors are required. So that is what 4 factors of production are highly required for this production process. Then what are these 4 factors? One is this land, labor, physical capital, as well as this human capital. These are the 4 very important factors of this production. So first, if you see land is the very important factor of production. Without land, you cannot start any production process, you may not be able to do any production. And is that only land required? No. Other than land, we also require some other natural resources such as forests, water, as well as some minerals. But among them, the very important one is this land. Then the next one is this labor. So here also, in any factory or in any industry, in any manufacturing industry, you can take, you require some kind of labor. And here the labor also can be of 2 types. One is, you can take this skilled labor, or you can say unskilled labor. What do you mean by this skilled and unskilled labor? Skilled labor means those who are well educated. At the same time, unskilled means those who are not well educated or well trained. And so in any production process, we require mainly 2 types of labor. One is those who are well educated, who have knowledge, and those who do not have proper knowledge, but their effort is required in the production process. That is why we have classified labor into 2 types. One is skilled labor, the second one is this unskilled labor. And the next very important thing, that is the third factor of production, is this physical capital. What do you mean by this physical capital? Is actually, there are again 2 different types of physical capital. One is working capital, the second one is this fixed capital. What do you mean by this working capital? Working capital includes this money and raw material. Why? Because every time it is something like, it is not fixed, it can be changing. Every time we will add some more raw material, every time we need some money. And why? Because why we need this raw material and money? Raw material is used in this process of production, it can be exhausted, again we need to buy, again we need to give raw material. At the same time, money is also in the same thing, to give labors or to buy raw material. So we need this money. So therefore, we can call this money as well as this raw material under this working capital. That means every time we need to change or we need to bring some new raw material, at the same time we also require money. Then the next one is, what is that? Fixed capital. What do you mean by this fixed capital? Is that once we buy this tools, machinery or buildings, there is no need to change them for longer time. So that is why we call it as this fixed capital. What are the things that come under this fixed capital? The things which come under this fixed capital are tools, buildings and machines. For example, you take this building, tools or machines. These machines and buildings, once you buy, once they are fixed, means there is no need to change continuously forever. That is why we call them as this fixed capital. Once we bought, means it can be used for longer time. But when we compare this with this working capital, you take raw material, once we buy, means again we may need to buy, or again we may need to change this raw material. Therefore, those which need continuous change, we call them as this working capital. And those things which once fixed, means if there is no need to change them, means we call them as this fixed capital. So here working capital examples, money and raw material, and fixed capital is tools, buildings, machinery, etc., etc., coming under this fixed capital. Then the other very important thing is this human capital. What do you mean by this human capital is that sometimes without the effort of humans, without the effort of human knowledge, we may not be able to start any kind of production process. Therefore, we also need this human resources or human capital. In detail, we will discuss about this human capital in the next chapter, that is people as resource. But as of now, if we can compare or if we can take what are these four factors of production, these four factors of production are: one is land, labor, physical capital, as well as human capital. And further, this physical capital is divided into two types. One is working capital as well as fixed capital. So together all these factors we call them as this factors of this production. So by using these factors of production, how production activity is taking place and how they are used in these different purposes. So all these things we will be discussing. Then the next one is that farming in Palampur. As I have mentioned that the farming is the main activity in this village known as Palampur. But it is not only farming, but there are some other activities which are also taking place in this Palampur. As I mentioned that they are non-farming activities. But let us see how farming is taking place in this Palampur. So the first topic about this is that land is fixed. You all know that land is fixed everywhere. We cannot increase the land or we cannot bring some new land. So here in this Palampur also the land is fixed, and 75% of the people in this village, they all are dependent upon this farming. And we cannot increase this size of this land. Why? Because already long back people in this village, what they have done is that they have turned all the wastelands into cultivatable lands. That means by making some changes or by renovating the land, what they have done is that they have brought wasteland into this useful or cultivatable land. So therefore there is no other land remaining in this village to increase or to make it under production. So therefore what we can say is that land is fixed everywhere, not only in Palampur but in every place in this country it is fixed. We cannot increase the size of the land. And so that is what here it is mentioned, land area under cultivation is fixed. And what is the chances? Are there any chances that we can increase the land? The only chance is that bringing wasteland under cultivation. But here the land in this village also has already been brought under this cultivation. Then the next one what we are supposed to do is that learn is about the standard unit of measuring the land. How we measure the land? How we will measure the land is that we will measure the land by something known as this, the hectares. 1 hectare, 2 hectares, 3 hectares. Then what is this hectare? Hectare means you can take this a square type of land where on each side it will be 100 meters. Here 100 meters. So here 100 meters, here 100 meters. So this particular square type land we call it as this hectare. So why I am mentioning is that, as I told, the land under this village is fixed or land under cultivation is fixed. So what is the procedure that we use to measure this land? Not only this hectare, in some places in rural areas it can also be known with something names known as this biga, bigha, as well as sometimes it is also known as this gunta. So like this there are some other names which are used for measuring this land, and sometimes we can also measure the land and the other English name that is acres. So what I am trying to say is that the land under cultivation is fixed, it cannot be increased. But the next topic, the second topic after this, what it asks is that the question raised, can we increase the production on the same land? So let us see whether we can be able to increase the land under this whether we can be able to increase the production under the fixed size of land. So next we will see about whether we can improve this size of we can improve this production or not under the same size of land.